Welcome. In this online video tutorial, we're going to take a look at image editing. We're going to use an online application at pixlr.com, Pixlr.com. But before we get started, we want to utilize the assets that we grabbed from our previous tutorial using Flickr. We went to Flickr. We downloaded an image that had a Creative Commons license, which allows us to utilize it for our own creative content. Now what I've done is create a folder, and in that folder I put the image that I downloaded from Flickr. And now this is a large image. I want to say it was 3,000 plus pixels by 2,000 plus pixels. When it downloaded, it has a very long name that's somewhat nonsense. The first thing I'm going to do here is rename it. I'm going to put my last name underscore 522 for our class, and I'm going to call this original so that I know that this is the original image. Now I'm going to copy that by Control C and Control V, just making a copy. Now the reason I'm making a copy is we're about to do some image editing, and I always like to keep my original safe and edit a copy. That way if anything goes wrong, the system crashes, I accidentally save something over the top of it that I didn't want, I always have my original. So what we're going to be editing today is this copy. So I'll just rename that by calling it copy. So now when I open up this file, you'll know where I'm getting it from. Please save your original. That will be part of the deliverable for the assignment. I will need that original that you downloaded from Flickr. Now let's go back to our browser here. I googled Pixlr, and here we go, Pixlr.com. I'm going to click here. Now Pixlr offers us a number of editing tools. I noticed down here that this is an Autodesk company, which is interesting. Autodesk really splashed in the industry in the 90s with the CAD software, and they're continuing working with images now using Pixlr. We're going to use Pixlr Editor. Another thing to note is that they have an iPhone and an Android app available. Part of the reason we like these online applications is that you can use them across browsers, across platforms, and now we're starting to be able to use them on our mobile devices as well. So image editing, anytime you need it, on any device you need it, it's very useful. So let's click Pixlr Editor, and it opens up the editor for us. Now what we're going to do today is be working with a previously existing image in the folder that I showed you before. And so I'm going to open image from the computer. And I'll look for, here's my folder, and I'll open up that copy. There we go. And this is the image that we downloaded from Flickr. I'm going to go to Edit, Select All, and it selects everything on this photograph. And notice over here in my Navigator widget, when it's all selected, the width of this image is 3072 by 2304. So it's a relatively large image. For this assignment, we're going to be doing some cropping and some resizing of images, and we have a number of deliverables. The first one that we're looking at is 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. Now that's an HD frame size for video. It's referred to as 720p. Once again, that's 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. Over here on the left-hand side of the screen is our toolbar set. Now if you've looked at Photoshop or other image editors, this is relatively standard. The arrow is the move tool. We've got a marquee tool, and what that does is it selects an area in the image. And that's what happened when I selected the whole image, was it used the marquee and selected the entire image. Now the tool that we're going to use to do a resize of this image to our specifications is the crop tool, which is right here in the upper left corner. So I'm going to click on the crop tool, and I'm going to go out into my over the top of my image here, and you notice that my cursor has changed into sort of a crosshairs, and then you have this little crop icon next to it. Up here at the top, it says constrain, and right now it says no restrictions. To get this moving line, let's go to off of the screen. Let's go to Edit and deselect all, just so that doesn't interfere. Okay, once again, now we've selected our crop tool. Up here it says constraint, no restriction. What we want to do is constrict it on the output size. And what that does is it lets us give a designated width by height, and what we crop will then be constrained on the output to the width and height that we set up. So I'm going to click output size, and it gives us the width and height of the image as it is now. Remember, the first deliverable is 1280 for the width, and the height is 720 pixels. And that will be the size of the image on output. Now, the way the crop tool works, once we've set this output, is that it will constrain a rectangle for us. We can drag it. I clicked, and now I'm dragging back and forth. And when I let go of this rectangle, it's going to select an area, and you can see the area is selected with this grid. Now, everything that's within this grid is what's going to remain after we crop, meaning that everything outside of the grid will be cropped away. Once we've got the grid on the screen, you can click down on it and hold down, and you can move the grid so that you can choose an area in the image that you want to keep. I like these blossoms right here, so I'm going to keep those, and everything outside of my grid, once I crop this, will be removed. So let me double click on this now, and it crops everything away. Now what we see is that the image shrinks. But really that's just an illusion. This is a very large image, and we can tell what we're working with by working again over here in this navigator. And what we see now is that this image appears to us at 23% of its original size. We can bump that up by sliding this or entering in a value here, and that enables us to zoom in and zoom out, get a concept of the image that we're really working with. Now, once again, I'll do that trick. If I go to Edit, Select All, it selects everything in the image, and over here in the navigator it tells me that indeed when we did that crop, what it gave us was an image that is now 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. That is the first step, first deliverable for the assignment. Now what we need to do before we do anything else is now to export this out back onto our computer as a JPEG of this size so that you can upload it to the assignment. Let's talk about files here. We started with our original image, the original JPEG, which was 3000 pixels. And it was called Skinner 522-copy. That's still the image that we're working with here. And if I clicked save, from here on out, that version of the copy would be this new size, 1280 by 720. Now, I don't want to do that because I want this copy I want to be able to use this copy at that 3000 pixel size again. So what I'm going to do instead, so that I can save this work that I just did with this new aspect ratio size, is I'm going to go to File, File Save, and now if I just click OK, it's going to write over the top of my image. What I want to do is give my file a new name. So I'm going to call it Skinner 522, and this image I'm going to call 1280 by 720. Notice that the format here, JPEG, that's what we do want, but there are other file formats if you would like to work with those. PNG for transparencies are great, And the PXD is the localized image editing file if you want to be able to open this file again in Pixlr and you've used layers. We'll talk about that in the next tutorial. For this tutorial, just click JPEG. It wants to default the quality to 80%. I just think that it's fine to leave the quality at 100%, so let's do that. And I'm going to click OK, and it's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it right there in that same folder that I started with. That way all of my images are together, and I'm going to click Save. Notice that now it's renamed my image size 1280 by 720, and that's the image that I'm working with. If I open up my folder now, my original folder, note that I still have my original. It's never been touched. This copy that I utilized and opened up first and that I cropped still remains the same, and it's the 3000 by 2000 pixels. And now I have this new image that I just saved, the Skinner 522 1280 by 720. The next deliverable for the assignment is an image that is 640 pixels by 360 pixels. Now, just like the 1280 by 720, 640 by 360, it still retains that 16 by 9 aspect ratio that we utilize in HD film and is the most common aspect ratio for video these days. 640 by 360 really is one of the standard sizes for a 16 by 9 video that you're watching on the web. So 640 by 360 is a good standard to know, and that's the next size that we need to create of this image. Now, when we opened up the first image, it was the 3000 by 2000 sort of off-size image, which means it didn't have a film aspect ratio of 16 by 9. So what we had to do was we had to crop the image into a 16 by 9 shape, and that's what we did by turning it into 1280 by 720. Now, because this is a 16 by 9 size image, and our next image deliverable, the 640 by 360, is also a 16 by 9, all we have to do with this image, we don't have to crop it, we just have to shrink it. And as we shrink it down, it will retain its aspect ratio, and we won't have to do any cropping of extra portions of the image. So to resize an image, I'm going to click the arrow tool here, and then I'm going to go up and click Deselect All, just to get rid of that selection tool so that it's fresh. So to resize our image, we'll go to the Image drop-down menu and click on Image Size. Now when I select Image Size, I can type in the desired width and height of the new image, and as long as this is checked, Constrain Proportions, then it will enlarge or shrink, constraining the proportions to the same width and height ratio that we have now. Now if we unclick this and we type in proportions that are different, say right here we have a 16 by 9 proportion. If we type in something other than a 16 by 9, we'll either get squishing or stretching of the photo, and it will look kind of strange. So when we do image sizes, it's best to constrain the proportions. We know we're working with a 16 by 9 image, so when I type in this new 16 by 9 size, which is the smaller size of 640 by 360, I type in the width, and it just types in the height for me. So now what we're going to do is shrink the 1280 by 720 down to 640 by 360. I'm going to click OK, and it shrunk it right down. So let's do a quick check. I'll go Edit, select all, and now when I look over in my navigator, indeed the width and height is 640 by 360. I'm going to go to Edit, Deselect All, just to get rid of that selection tool. Once again, in the navigator, I can blow it back up. Basically, what we have is an exact copy of this image, of the image we were working with before. We just shrunk it down in size. And depending on the frame size that you're using in the editor, that the frame size that you're using in the video editor will determine what size still images you need. So you should be able to crop an image to the aspect ratio you need, and then find the right frame size, whether that's 1280 or 640, etc. Now, what we have here, once again, is that we've shrunk down the image that we were working with. This is still registering. It's the 1280 by 720 image. If we save this right now, we'll save over that work that we've done. So what we want to do is save this as another image, name. So I'm going to go to File, Save, and once again, don't save it as this, because it'll save right over the top of our work. Let's erase this and call this one 640 by 360, and that'll save the new file. Once again, JPEG. We'll bump that back up to 100, and I'll click OK. And I'll save it right into that image assignment folder that I created, and I'll click Save. Great. So let's take a look. Now I have my 640 by 360, my 1280 by 720, and my original. All of those are going to need to be sent to me in through WebCT for our assignment. We also still have that copy of the original, which is good because we're going to need to open that back up for this next image. So we've finished working with our 16 by 9 aspect ratio images for this resizing assignment. Now we want to look at the 4 by 3 aspect ratio. And as we spoke about in class, we're going to use a frame size that is not really 4 by 3, but is the television standard, old television standard for 4 by 3, and that's 720 pixels by 480 pixels. So let's close this 640 by 360 image out of here. We saved that. We already saved it, so I'll say nope. Thanks for asking that. I'm going to click Open Image from Computer, and this time I'm going to open up that copy of the original again. It's the large version of this photograph. And I'm going to click Select All. And when I do that, once again, we've got the width and height 3000 by 2300. What I'm going to do with this image is crop it down to the 720 by 480 pixel size. That's the 4 by 3 aspect ratio used by standard definition television. It's extremely common for handheld camcorders. Some online editors utilize that as the baseline standard instead of using an HD 16 by 9. So 720 by 480 is still important for us to remember when we're talking about making videos, and so that's what we're going to crop this image to right now. Gonna click the crop tool, make sure that the output size is constrained, and the width this time is going to be 720 by 480. I'm going to click Edit, deselect all, get rid of that line, and I have my crop tool so you can see the cursor there. Now when I pull out the area to crop this time, notice that the rectangle size is constrained slightly smaller to a 4 by 3 aspect ratio. When I let it go, I get my grid. I'm going to move my grid just to the area that I want. And recall that everything outside of the grid is going to get cropped away. So I'll double click on it. And now I'm cropped. I'm going to choose the arrow tool. I'm going to go over here and increase the size of the image in my navigator just so I can get a good look at it. Edit, select all, and there it is, 720 by 480. So I know I have the right size, which is for the deliverable for the assignment. Now we're going to take a look at some of the features within the Pixlr editor itself. I'm going to go to Edit, Deselect. The first menu that we're going to take a look at are the adjustments here. And When I click on that, I get a number of operations that I can control the image with. Now, if I take a look at, say, something like color balance, I can change the offset of the red, the green. I can change those through number values. Similar thing, brightness and contrast. I can change the contrast, bringing out different effects. If I click OK, it will apply those effects. If I click on adjustment and go down the page and I click on desaturate, that is going to give me a black and white image. So if you're looking to create a black and white, use the desaturate choice. And as in most programs, if you click on it and decide that you don't want to utilize the effect that just happened, you can go to edit, click undo, and there you go. It'll undo the effect. Let's go to adjustment again. I'll try out old photo, and that gives me an effect. Click edit, undo. So you can use adjustments. Now for the 720 by 480 image, I think I did require that you augment the photograph somehow using an adjustment. You can also use filters. So if we click on filter, there are a number of filters that we can add. I can add a blur, and I can blur more or less. Let's say less, and I'll click OK, and that gives me my blur. Let's take a look, and now I could do something like a swirl over the top of it. I can increase the size of the swirl, maybe increase the amount, and I'll click OK. And it gives me this a series of effects. So you can layer filters and adjustments over the top of each other to create new visual effects with your image. Now over here is the history module or widget, and note that I can take a step back and just get the blur. I can take a step back and just get the image as it was before. So I can step through the history, which shows me all of the steps that I've gone through since I've opened this session. And I can navigate back and forth to different steps. If I wanted to get back to the original image that was even before it was cropped, I could click here on Open Image, and it would give me that original image size. So you can use the Edit Undo feature if you just want to go back one or two steps. If you've been working for a while and you want to go deeper and undo to a deeper amount, you can utilize the history, which is always useful to know. Let's add a different filter here. This time I'm going to do something like pastels. And I'll click inverse. So I have a 720 by 480 image that I put a filter on. Now I need to save this out because if you notice we're still working with the file that's called 522 copy. So I'm going to go to File, Save, and we'll call this one 720 by 480. We'll keep it a JPEG. I'll bump it up in quality to 100% and click OK. I'll save it right into that image assignment folder. And when I take a look, I now have my original, which is what I downloaded from Flickr. I have the 1280 by 720, which is the HD 16 by 9 frame size of this image. I have a 640 by 360, which is a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, and that is a 16 by 9 that's commonly utilized on the web, 640 by 360. Then we created a 4 by 3 image that was 720 pixels by 480 pixels. This is the common standard definition television size, and then we played with some effects on this image. These four images are the deliverables for the first portion of our image editing assignment. You can upload those through WebCT as I instructed in the assignment, and also don't forget to give attribution to the photographer, the URL, and the image title of the image that you found on Flickr. And by doing that, we will be sure to retain our part of the Creative Commons licensing bargain. I believe that's the end of this tutorial utilizing Pixlr. When you do close these windows, after you've saved them, and you close the browser here, all of the editing that you've been doing up to this point will be lost. So be sure to save your images as you go, just like you would any other creative content. And thanks for watching.